By Josh Carter, Canada. You don't wake up one day weighing 180 kilograms. It creeps up on you, slowly, silently. One skipped gym session becomes a month. One bad day turns into a routine of comfort eating. And before you know it, your body isn't a home anymore. It's a prison. At the time, I didn't think anything was really wrong. I mean, sure, my knees hurt when I walked upstairs. I needed 2 seats on the bus, and tying my shoes left me gasping for breath. But I laughed it off that I had the jokes ready before anyone else could say anything. Big guy, big appetite. I used to tell my coworkers, patting my belly after devouring a double bacon cheeseburger with fries and a shake. No one questioned it. I was the funny fat guy, the dependable IT manager with the snack drawer and a permanent spot at the vending machine. No one asked if I was okay, and honestly, I wouldn't have known how to answer if they did. But deep down, I knew I hated mirrors. I knew I avoided family photos. I knew how it felt to stand naked in the shower and feel shame so thick it clung to my skin like the steam. Still, I convinced myself it was fine. Josh, my mom would say gently over the phone, "Have you thought about seeing a doctor?" "I'm just built big, Ma, don't worry about me." I'd chuckle, changing the subject. I had mastered the art of deflection. If I kept it light, no one would see the cracks. Then came the office Christmas party. December 14, I remember it too clearly. I was wearing my biggest shirt, 4XL, stretched to its limit, and trying to act like I belonged in that crowded room. Laughter, music, holiday lights, and me hovering near the buffet table like it was a safe zone. "Hey, Josh, you okay?" Tanya from HR asked, frowning. "You're sweating a lot." "It's just hot in here," I said, wiping my forehead. Truth was, my chest felt tight. My left arm tingled, but I brushed it off. Maybe I'd eaten too fast. 10 minutes later, I was on the floor. People screamed. Someone called 911. I could hear Tanya's voice panicked right before everything blurred. "Josh, stay with us. Just breathe. Hey, stay with me." And then, nothing. I woke up to the sound of beeping. Not my alarm clock, not a microwave. Something colder, more clinical. Beep, beep, beep. My eyes struggled to open. The lights above me were too bright, the air too sterile. My mouth was dry, my chest ached, not sharp but deep, like something had been torn open and sewn back together again. Then I saw my mom. She was sitting beside me, her hands clenched tight around a paper cup of coffee, eyes red, hair pulled back like she hadn't slept in days. "Mom." I croaked, my throat raw. Her head snapped up. Relief and pain crashed together on her face. "Oh, God, Josh," she whispered, standing to touch my hand. "You're awake." A nurse came in seconds later. "Welcome back," she said, checking monitors. "You had a heart attack. A pretty serious one." Heart attack. Those 2 words slammed into me like a freight train. I was 34, not 74, not some old man with a walker and a history of smoking. I was me. Josh, I still played video games on weekends, still laughed at dumb memes, still thought I had all the time in the world. "How?" I whispered. "How is that even possible?" The nurse gave me a kind but heavy look. "Weight, blood pressure, cholesterol. Your body's been under a lot of stress for a long time, Josh." This was a warning. My mom sat down again. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't have to. Tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw real fear on her face. The kind of fear that lives in silence, in all the phone calls she didn't make, in all the dinners she didn't push too hard about. "You scared me," she whispered. I didn't respond that I couldn't. Because deep down, I wasn't just scared, I was ashamed. I'd done this, I'd ignored every sign, every warning bell, every aching joint and short breath and button that wouldn't close. And now I was lying in a hospital bed with tubes in my arm and a monitor tracking the rhythm of the heart I almost destroyed. Later that night, the doctor came in. Older guy, gray beard, sharp eyes. He didn't sugarcoat it. "Josh," he said, pulling up a chair, "you're lucky to be alive. Most people don't get second chances." I nodded, unable to meet his gaze. "You can walk out of here and pretend this never happened," he said. "Go back to fast food and Netflix. and telling yourself you're just big-boned. But you'll be back. Or, worse, you won't. I swallowed hard. Or, he continued, you can make a change. A real one. It won't be easy. You'll hate it some days. But it might just save your life. That night, when the room was quiet and my mom had gone home to rest, I lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling. Something inside me cracked. For the first time, I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to live. They let me out of the hospital 5 days later. 5 long, sterile, humiliating days. I left with a prescription list the size of a grocery receipt, a meal plan from a hospital dietitian, and a recommendation to start light walking for 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes. I remember getting into the passenger seat of my mom's car, and the seatbelt didn't fit. Again. She didn't say anything, she just pulled the belt over me as best she could and drove. I looked out the window, pretending to be interested in traffic. But inside, I was crumbling. You okay, sweetheart? She asked softly. I nodded. I wasn't. What followed were some of the darkest weeks of my life. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't answer texts from coworkers or friends. I quit my job under the excuse of needing time to recover, but the truth was, I couldn't face them. I couldn't face myself. Most days, I stayed in bed that I'd stare at the ceiling for hours. Meals were a battleground. Salad made me feel like a fraud. Oatmeal felt like punishment. My body craved sugar and fat like an addict. Every step was hard, not just physically, emotionally. My identity had been tied to being the big guy for so long, I didn't know who I was without it. Without the jokes, without the self-deprecating laughter, without the food. One day I broke down. It was 2:30 a.m. that I was sitting on the floor of my bathroom, sweating, crying, shaking from the urge to drive to the nearest fast food place. I stared at myself in the mirror. Look at you, I whispered. You're a mess. You're weak. But then, something inside me pushed back. No, you survived, you're still here. That means something. That was the night I made a choice. Not to lose 100 kilograms, not to become some shredded gym bro, just to try 0.1 honest day, 0.1 small win. The next morning, I got up early and went for a walk. 5 minutes around the block. I was wheezing by minute 3. Sweat rolled down my neck. A lady walking her dog passed me twice. But I did it. And the next day, I did it again. 5 minutes became 10, then 15, then 20. Some days were awful. Some days I cried halfway through, but I kept going. I joined a support group online for people recovering from heart attacks. I posted anonymously at first, then I share my name. And one day, a guy messaged me privately, "Man, your post hit me hard. You made me get off my ass today. Thanks." That message meant everything. For the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, my pain had a purpose. 6 months in, I stepped on the scale and stared. 141.7 kilograms. I had lost nearly 40 kilograms. I stood there in my bedroom, bare feet, towel around my waist, and just stared. I hadn't cried like that since the hospital. But these were different tears. I didn't dance around the room. I didn't post it on social media. I didn't tell anyone right away. I just looked in the mirror, and for the first time in years, I didn't hate the person looking back. Let me be clear, it wasn't just about the number. It was about what that number meant. It meant I showed up for myself, over and over. On days I didn't want to. On days I wanted to quit. On days my legs ached, my mind screamed, and my heart whispered, "Why are you doing this?" Because I was still alive. Because I finally wanted to stay that way. I started cooking for myself, and not just steaming broccoli like some sad robot. I learned how to make food that was good and good for me. Salmon with lemon and dill, quinoa salads with roasted veggies, even healthy versions of tacos. I worked with a personal trainer twice a week. Her name was Lena, a tiny powerhouse of a woman who didn't get away with anything. "You're stronger than your excuses, Josh," she'd say. "Let's prove it." The gym was intimidating at first. Everyone looked like they were born with six-packs and protein shakes in their baby bottles. But Lena reminded me, no one starts at the finish line. The first time I deadlifted 50 kilograms, I thought I was going to pass out. The first time I jogged a full kilometer without stopping, I nearly did. But then came the moment I'll never forget. It was summer. I was back at the beach, same one I'd avoided for years. This time, I wore a t-shirt and shorts, not a baggy hoodie. I sat on the sand and looked out at the water, and a little kid ran past me, chasing a frisbee. He turned to me and grinned. "Hey, you want to play?" I laughed, surprised. "Me? Yeah, you look strong." Strong. I look strong. Not fat. Not big guy. Not, "You should sit this one out." Strong. I got up and played for 10 minutes before I needed a break, but I didn't care. I was living in a body I had fought for. That night, I went home, stood in front of the mirror, and took a photo. Same pose I took the day I started. Side by side, I barely recognized myself. But more than my body, it was my eyes that changed. There was light in them again. Focus. Fire. The mirror wasn't the enemy anymore. It was a record of a man who refused to give up. If you told me 2 years ago that I'd be waking up at 6 a.m. to stretch, drink green smoothies, and journal about gratitude, I would have laughed in your face. Me? Josh Carter, morning workouts and kale? Nah, I was the drive-through guy, the I'll start Monday guy, the I don't do gyms guy. But here I was, awake before sunrise, tying my shoes in the quiet stillness of my apartment, my heart calm, my breath steady. It wasn't just about weight anymore. It was about who I was becoming. I started reconnecting with people, old friends who had slowly faded away. I reached out to them. Not with excuses, not with shame, but with honesty. One of the hardest calls I made was to my ex, Danny. We hadn't spoken since the breakup, a messy one years ago when I was deep in denial and couldn't love anyone properly, including myself. I called her out of the blue one Sunday afternoon. "Hey, it's Josh." Silence. Then, "Wow. Hey, I wasn't expecting this. I just wanted to say I'm sorry," I said, voice shaking. Not for the breakup, I know we needed that, but for the way I showed up. Or didn't. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I always hoped you'd find your way back to yourself. We didn't get back together. That wasn't the point. But that conversation healed something in me. I also started sharing my story online. At first, it was terrifying that I posted a side-by-side photo, the old me and the current me, and poured my heart into a caption. 1 year ago, I nearly died from a heart attack. I weighed 180 kilograms. I was depressed, ashamed, and convinced I couldn't change. I was wrong. The post exploded. Messages poured in from strangers, from other big guys who thought they were too far gone, from women in their 50s who had lost hope, from teenagers scared of their future. One message hit me like a gut punch. It read, "Your story made me cancel the Uber Eats order I just placed. Instead, I took a walk. That's the first time I've done that in 3 years. Thank you." I read it 10 times. That's when I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. I became certified as a wellness coach, not because I had all the answers, but because I knew what it felt like to have none. I wanted to be the person I needed when I was at rock bottom. I wasn't shouting, "Just eat clean and train hard." I was telling people, "You're worth trying for, one small step at a time." At my first group session, I stood in front of a room full of people, different ages, backgrounds, stories, and I was nervous as hell. But I took a deep breath and said, "Hi, I'm Josh. I survived a heart attack. I used to hate myself. Now I wake up every day and fight for a life I love. And I promise if I can do it, you can too." And they clapped, not out of politeness, out of recognition. Because when pain is spoken honestly, it reaches people. People love before and after photos. They love the dramatic reveal, the shocked expressions, the tight shirts, the caption, "If I can do it, so can you." But here's what they don't always tell you. There is no after. There's just today, and then tomorrow, and then the next battle, the next choice, the next reminder of why you started. It's been 2 years since the heart attack. I weigh 91 kilograms now. That's half of what I used to carry. But the most important weight I lost was the shame. I no longer wake up hating myself. I no longer use food to fill a hole I refuse to admit was there. I no longer live on autopilot, hoping no one notices how much I'm struggling. These days, I wake up grateful. Not every day is perfect, that I still have scars, physical and emotional. I still have cravings. There are days when the gym feels like a mountain, and days when old voices whisper, "You'll slip, you'll go back." But the difference now, I talk back. No, I won't. I've come too far. A few months ago, I was invited to speak at a local high school. The auditorium was packed. Teenagers, some leaning back with arms crossed, skeptical, half listening. I told them my story. I told them about being the funny guy who hated himself, about eating in secret, about waking up in a hospital bed thinking my life was over, about choosing to fight every single day. And when I was done, there was silence. Then applause. Afterward, a kid no older than 17 came up to me. Big hoodie, eyes heavy. He didn't say much, just, "Thank you." I needed that more than I can explain. And I thought, yet I know that feeling. My name is Josh Carter. I used to think I'd never change. I used to believe I'd die young, quietly ashamed, but I was wrong. I didn't just survive a heart attack. I survived myself. And now, I live, I breathe, I teach, I love, I fight every day. Because no matter how far you've fallen, no matter how lost you feel, you are not broken beyond repair. Your story is not over. In fact, it may just be beginning.